The Ictane Burnout series is back. And today I just wanted to do like a really quick one actually. And this one is basically about how resentment can lead to burnout. And I don't know if you're familiar with Aesop's fables, but there's one about the fox and really short story. The fox comes across a tree. Up at the top of the tree are these delicious looking grapes and it tries to get them. It tries to jump, falls short, keeps jumping, keeps falling short to the point where it decides it's not going to jump anymore. And it creates a story. It says that, okay, cool. Why am I wasting my time with this anyway? It's just going to be sour grapes. And resentment kind of works like that. When we try and get something that's out of our reach, or we're trying to change something that's out of our control, it can lead to this tension in the body, the stress that, when prolonged, can cause stress in the body, which can lead to burnout. The reason why I'm saying this is I see this happen a lot in work, and I'll give you an example of this. And it doesn't actually have to be in work; it can be anywhere. Think about that one person you cannot stand, right? Is either going to be in your family, your friendship group, your network, your colleagues, your boss, whatever it is. But whenever they show up, there's something that happens physiologically in your body. Like you feel that tension and you're like, I can't stand this person. But you grit your teeth, you say good morning, all of that kind of stuff. It might even be your spouse, your partner, right? What happens here is that resentment is actually a feeling of bitterness or anger towards that, especially one that's undealt with, right? And so it comes from a sense of unfairness, and our bodies can pick up a lot more data than our minds can sometimes. So somebody might say hello to everybody else but you. And in your mind, you don't really think too much of it, but your body picks that up. It will notice that. So the next time you see them, you're already thinking this person is shady, right? You can't quite put your finger on it. There's something about them that makes you feel uneasy when they're in the space. So much so can say their name or walk in without saying anything to you, and you already feel tension. You might have experienced this before. If you haven't, you are one of the very few who have been able to curb this feeling. But over time, this can build. So if you imagine, it's not just one person, it's the entire environment, right? So this might be the whole workplace. It might be stress in terms of how people within your team treat you. It can be how your children speak to you. It can be how people online comment on stuff you say in public. It can be all kinds of stuff that builds up this tension within your body, right? It builds up this stress, which, as we know, undealt with, unmanaged over time, can lead to burnout. And it manifests in all kinds of different ways, right? So you might lash out at people who aren't even deserving, like you've built all this stress over here, and then you let it out on the next person that says hi to you on the bus. It might come out in your changed demeanor, and you might feel the stress. You might wake up and already feel stressed before going into that environment. And sometimes we call it microaggressions as well, right? So there are little things that might be happening within the day, within the week, which acts as small triggers, small pinpricks to our nervous system, which tell us we're not safe, that we're not welcome, we're not wanted, right? And these things can make us feel like this is unfair. I this is unjust. This is I haven't done anything to deserve this treatment. But when it's unsaid, when it's undealt with, this builds up physiologically as well as emotionally, and it can end up being creating toxic relationships, um, changing the workplace dynamics. All kind of things can happen. But the one thing that I've noticed is that when we are resentful to others, it's usually for a reason, right? We've noticed something, and but the collateral of that is that if we don't deal with it with other people, we end up feeling resentful towards ourselves. And this is when things like negative self-talk and self-sabotage and things like that start to happen, because we're like, oh, even I won't stand up for myself. Why would anybody else? And we start to feel resentful towards ourselves. And the problem with that is we can't escape ourselves. At least with a workplace, you can leave work and you can get home and be in a different environment, be around different people, etc. If you're resentful towards yourself for not standing up for yourself, for not following through with the things you said you would, for not treating yourself the way you feel like you deserve, then you will always be able to carry that. And then that can add with your stress as well. And so you have this constant feeling of inadequacy. And the problem is when we start to build these stories around these little experiences that we start to believe, and we start to act according to that belief, right? If I am not standing up for myself, if I'm not treating myself this way, then maybe I don't deserve these things. And if I don't deserve these things, I may not go for these things. And if I don't go for these things, I don't get these things, which I didn't deserve in the first place. And then the cycle continues. And so over time, you might find yourself living in an experience where you feel like you don't deserve to be treated this way, but you can't, you have no evidence to support why you shouldn't be. And so it's something that I've noticed when we're talking about these things is we create stories to make ourselves feel better. Oh, I didn't want that anyway. We end up lying to ourselves effectively, trying to make ourselves feel better, because otherwise there's this conflict within ourselves. I'm saying I want this, but I'm not creating a story which is allowing me to get that. And so what would create equilibrium is if I create the story that I didn't want that in the first place, or that thing is actually bad for me, or that thing would never work even if I tried it anyway. And then that means that you end up, but deep inside, you actually know that it is what you want, which is what causes the conflict. And so it accentuates that. Now you're lying to yourself and your body knows it. Your body knows what you really need. Your body knows what you really want, but it's paying attention to the fact that you're saying something completely different. And so this is one of these things I want to add with is that when we talk about burnout, a lot of the time we're thinking about external pressures. We're thinking about workload. We're thinking about emotional exhaustion, things that might happen. We experience grief and all that. And there's lots of different aspects that can lead to burnout. But one of the ones we don't talk about a lot is that relationship with ourselves and the resentment we may have to other people and ourselves. We got a comment here that says, stress sits in the body and becomes dis-ease or disease. 100%. The way you think then becomes detrimental to the body and can accelerate your own decline. We got my brother speaking on this. 100%, 100%. And this happens. And like I said, you might have experienced this yourself. You might be experiencing it right now. There might be something that is causing dis-ease within your body. And I really like the concept of ease. I use that a lot recently. Am I at ease? Is my nervous system at ease? Do I feel relaxed in this space? Do I feel comfortable? Do I feel welcome? If I don't, then there's usually a sign that I need to reflect on something, right? But one of the things about resentment is it can be dealt with. You can address it. One of the things could be forgiveness, right? So if you feel like someone has been unjust to you or unfair, for example, forgiveness is a key, right? It's really huge. It's not easy. It's not easy at all, but it can be such a release. Otherwise, it's something you hold on to. It's like drinking poison that's meant for somebody else, right? Forgiveness is not for the other person, it's for you. It's for your ease, right? It's letting go of certain things. And when you feel like you've been unjustly treated, it's difficult to let go of that thing. It's difficult to feel it because you feel like it's letting them get away with certain things, right? But unless we do actually let go of it, we won't be able to grab hold of what serves us, right? And compassion towards other people and ourselves as well is an important part of this, right? Is being realizing that everyone is going through something and you may not even know what they're going through. Understanding that the story that you create in your head may not be the truth. You may be projecting, and then you're feeling resentful against a story that you have actually projected from your own insecurities. Unless it's something that is backed up by fact, we sometimes don't even realize when we do this in real life, right? And one of the most important things I found is when there is something that's actually bothering us, to actually speak about it. If there's someone who's done something or said something to you or acted in a certain way that doesn't make you feel comfortable, actually letting them know, actually being like, listen, and here's a framework I would use, right? I heard this quite a while ago, and I found it to be such a really good way to frame things, because I think part of the problem we have is many of us are afraid of conflict. We're like, okay, what would happen if something goes wrong here? I might lose this person as a friend. They might walk away from me. They might create this persona of me which isn't true to me, and they might spread it, and I might lose other friends, all kinds of things. might go on in our heads, which will lead us to not approach the conflict in the first place, potential conflict. But one of the things I like to do when I assume positive intent. If someone has done which makes me feel a certain way, if they actually care, if I assume that they care about me, then I've also got to assume that it's not on purpose, which means that it might be an interpretation issue, which means that it's in our best interest for me to dig a little deeper to find out what was actually meant. Because otherwise I may miss out the opportunity to build a closer connection with this person. Because sometimes when you get on the other side of conflict, you build trust, you build connection, etc. So the framework is this. You look at what happened, which is more objective. You look at how you interpreted it. Then you look at how you felt as a result, and then you ask them for their side of the story. That might look like this. Hey, we were talking yesterday, and I noticed that you didn't address me when you were introducing everyone in that circle. It made me feel like I had done something wrong, or there was something off with us, and it really made me feel a bit sad and unappreciated. Is that right? Like, what was happening on your side? And then that gives them the opportunity to say, "Oh my God, I did not even realize I did that. I'm so sorry. I had 1,000 things on my head and actually just skimmed through the people. And psychologically, I already know you one to one. And I think underneath, I almost assumed that everyone already knew you already. All these things could happen, and then you'll be like, oh, okay, that actually makes sense. That makes me feel a lot better. And then your bond is strengthened, and then you go on and carry on. But here's what happens psychologically. One, you lose the resentment for the person, right? So whatever tension might have been built up is released. Because what happens is, if that happens on the Monday and you don't address it until 2 months later, that's 2 months of buildup. And by the time it gets to that point, it might feel like a huge issue, right? You might have already lost the friendship by then. And it happens all the time, right? The longer you wait, the bigger it seems to be. It grows into this monster, as some people would call it. So one is you get rid of that resentment. Two is that you build self-confidence within yourself. You're telling yourself that actually I am standing up for myself. I care about me. And so it builds up the relationship with you too. Yeah. So when it comes to these kind of things, and it can affect when you're acknowledging and processing your feelings, setting boundaries and letting people know that they've crossed them, paying attention to what your values are and not doing the things that you feel like is against your core. Those kind of things are things that will actually help you get rid of these bits of resentment. And it is to say, actually, yeah, I just don't like you. Then right? And then you can say, okay, cool. Well, this isn't something that's going to work for me. And then separate from that scenario. And that is often the worst case scenario. Mum always says to me, prepare for the worst and hope for the best. If this person means a lot to you, prepare that they might, return with something that is not going to be favorable towards you, but prepare yourself for it, because you are worth knowing those things, right? It's worth you knowing where you stand. You deserve that, right? So if this is something you have problems with, this is something I would definitely say. One is speak to the person. Two, have a conversation with yourself. Three, speak to a professional. It might be a therapist, it might be a coach, it might be your GP. There could be all kinds of stuff that is going on. You might find yourself in a hormonal imbalance, all kinds of stuff that could be happening internally as well, that can help you, that can affect the way you're interpreting what's happening around you. But whatever it is, don't do nothing, because that builds up. And like I said, the build up leads to stress. The stress leads to burnout. If it's something you need help with, get in touch. I'm a burnout coach. So that's it for today. And I'm not sure how frequently I'm going to do these. I was thinking about every day, but it might be a bit much for me. So maybe every week or something like that. But if it's something you find valuable, send to people, let them know. If there's someone you feel resentful towards, speak to them. If the resentment is towards yourself, have a moment, reflect, meditate, journal, ask yourself the questions: what is it about myself that I'm feeling this tension around? And deal with that. If you let it go and dealt with, it might come back to beat you in the long run. So be careful of that. Whatever you do today, I hope you're blessed, and I'll chat to you soon.